Hi, hello, happy new year, and this is the first vlog of 2023 that I'm posting. You'll have noticed that it is not in fact a weekly vlog, it is rather instead a themed video. And I decided last year sometime, I think around the middle of the year, I decided that I didn't want to do monthly vlogs anymore. I really would have preferred and really wanted to do themed vlogs. I love watching them, so it just makes sense to make them. And this is the very first one for the year, and I'm so excited to share it with you. I sat down and I was like, what is one thing I really want to do in the new year? And that was to reread The Cruel Prince, and that led up to the fact that The Stolen Heir was coming out on the 3rd of January. This vlog is a little bit delayed. I was hoping to get it up on the 3rd of January when the book came out, but alas, that did not happen at all, but that's a-okay. I actually took some photos for the series. I'll pop them over here. This is the Cruel Prince series. I'm referring to it as the Cruel Prince series just because I feel like that's the most common name and not the Folk of the Air series. I forgot that it was called that actually. This is what it looked like, and this is my picture for the Stolen Heir. I was so happy. I had this set, which I absolutely love, but I can't wear it often because it's one of those things that is just a little too random to wear sometimes, but I love wearing it, and I really want to take a photo with it this year, and I did, and I'm so proud of them. And I don't know, there's something about it that just makes me feel so happy. Without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into my reread of the Cruel Prince series and my read of the Stolen Heir. Up until this point, you've been seeing me read The Cruel Prince, and I am really liking my reread so far, simply because I see so much more that's happening at the moment. I am having things like foreshadowing, deviousness, because I feel like the book is so devious, important points, and obviously the romance as well. Things that I think are like reminiscent of romance, just because I don't think this is particularly romantic, but it does lend itself towards romance in the future. But right now, I'm really enjoying The Cruel Prince. I'm so excited to continue on the series, and I'll give you more of my thoughts probably when it's finished. I have just finished The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I have read this before. I probably would have mentioned that by now, but I have read this and I finished it. I tabbed it this time around, and there are some like small annotations, but I definitely think I'll be annotating it again in the future. But this book is so good. I really loved it. I thought it was fantastic. In terms of action, there isn't a lot. In terms of plotting and political intrigue, there is loads of it, especially towards the end. So I definitely enjoyed this. I don't know what I'm going to rate it as of yet. Hi, hello. So I just come back from a day on the water. As you can see, I'm pretty burnt. I just wanted to do a quick update for The Wicked King. I finished reading The Wicked King yesterday, and I really like it. I do think that when you read this for the first time, the ending is a lot more oomph, like a lot more impactful, but having reread it, I really love seeing how everything turns out the way it does. I see a lot of the scheming. I love seeing Jude in her element. I definitely love the series, not because of the action it has, but because it lacks the action. It has so much political intrigue for me, and I really like the scheming. So if you have any books that are like this, let me know, because I absolutely love political stuff. Not to say that I want to read a book entirely about it. I like having that be part of the subplot, or one of the things, especially where you get to see, like, especially with the Cruel Prince series, where you see everything is just scheming. I started The Queen of Nothing. I'm not very far in. I'm on page 12, but I'm hoping to finish this across today and tomorrow so that I can officially get into The Stolen Heir, which I am so beyond excited for, and I really look forward. I'll probably wrap up on my feelings pretty soon. I'm back home in a couple of days, and hopefully with the 10 that has stuck. But that is the update I wanted to give for now for both The Wicked King and The Queen of Nothing. I don't remember too much of what happens in The Queen of Nothing. I really do look forward to reading both of these books and seeing what happens with my thoughts. So far, I definitely think a reread is important. Hi friends, I'm officially back from holiday. I wanted to quickly give you a small little update before I do the last stretch of reading. So the first things first is I finished The Queen of Nothing. It was yesterday, I want to say, and I really love this one. I think out of all three books, this has been my favorite in the Folk of the Air trilogy. This was just so phenomenal. I really felt like everything came together in this book. Everything we had to deal with in book 1 and book 2, all of the strats. I still hate Taryn. I understand like she really comes together in this book, but I still don't like her character. I think she's too selfish, but like in the wrong kind of selfish. Like I'm for my family, but I'm actually just for myself kind of person. And I really just like this book a lot. I really am happy that I gave this book a reread because my initial thoughts when I read The Cruel Prince way back when I initially read it for the first time, I gave The Cruel Prince 3 stars because I thought it was average, but this time around I really liked it. The Wicked King I gave 4 stars, and I think that might be different from my original rating. I think I might have given that 4 or 5, I'm not entirely sure. But that one I did enjoy, but I felt like it was once again like one of those middle books, like really just trying to connect the dots to make things make sense. But things really got together in this book and I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars, 100%, hands down, my favorite in the trilogy. That being said, I have since started Stolen Heir by Holly Black. I am on page 85 at the moment. My goal is to finish it within the next day or 2 and give you my thoughts. So far, we are set in the future. It's been 8 years since the original trilogy. We see that Oak and Siren are both adults now, or like relatively grown up. Oak is a lot more talkative, a lot more mature in some ways, and maybe not so much in other ways. And I don't know, he's just a really interesting character. We've definitely had a lot of, not necessarily world building, but I did find that in each and every single one of Holly Black's books, there was just a lot of recapping, which is great if you read them like months apart. But as someone who read them pretty much day after day, it was kind of annoying to recall that kind of information which I really remembered. But if you're picking up the Stolen Heir without picking up the Cruel Prince, which you definitely can, I would say there's a lot of recapping that does happen in the Stolen Heir, so don't stress about recapping yourself and rereading all the books. You can maybe get away, you might want to read like a online what happened in the book summary, but once again, I don't think that's necessary. We had a lot of recap coming up until this point. We've been introduced to Oak as his own character and Siren as her own character. Once again, this is like one point of view. We're only getting Siren's point of view at this point in time. I don't think that's going to change, and basically our main characters have been tasked with a quest. Oak obviously has a reason for wanting to go and take on this quest, and Siren has her own reasons, and we kind of see this tension of something happened between Oak and Siren years ago, and you know, there's been a little bit of what happened between them, so that's quite an interesting spin on things, and I really am enjoying it. I don't know if I'm enjoying it as much as the other series at the moment, but I am keen to keep reading, keen to see what happens. So far, so good. Hi friends, hello. If you hear the noise in the background, it's the generator. We're currently having a power outage in my area, but I thought I would give you a little bit of an update on the Stolen Heir. I thought I would finish it yesterday, but I haven't quite yet. I do plan on finishing it today. I'm on page 200, which gives me about 150-ish pages left to read, and I thought I'd kind of give you my midpoint thoughts, if you will. I will say that I feel like I'm not as enamored with this book as I was with the Cruel Prince series. I thought that series was a lot more. I found Jude's want to, you know, be powerful so attractive. Not only like in the sense of like, you know, I could fall in love with her, but like it just seemed so appealing. And I feel like in this one where we follow Surin, I feel like she lacks motivation to be who she is or to get somewhere. She's kind of just going along with the things at the moment. I do think that we might just get a little bit more of the ambition, the appeal, the motivation to continue towards the end of the book, so that's why I'm definitely continuing. But at the moment this book is pretty 3-star-ish, even less so than what I originally thought The Cruel Prince was, because honestly I feel like this could be better. I do find that the writing is so sluggish to read. The other ones were just so quick. You could easily read 50 pages in like one go constantly and like finish a book, whereas with this one I'm finding that I'm really struggling to finish a chapter. The chapters in this are also so incredibly long, which makes no sense. I mean, chapter 10 is about 30 pages long, and that is so long for a YA book. But yeah, otherwise I really do like Oak. I think he really becomes a little bit more than the sniveling, spoiled child we know him as in the first series. He's definitely come into himself in this, and I really do wish we got to see his perspective more so than Surin's, just because I feel like we would have a lot more to go with. But yeah, so that's kind of my feelings on this. I am probably going to finish this today. I'm also wearing my corset because I want to take a quick picture with the Cruel Prince and Stolen Heir for my Instagram tomorrow. So now that we've watched all of that, I think it's time to give you my final thoughts. I generally did give them for the series, but I'm also here to give you my final thoughts on the Stolen Heir. So let's get to it. I initially gave this 3 stars, and upon the reread I instantly regretted that. I gave this 4.5 stars. I do think it's not perfect. Upon the reread, there are so many things about this that I really loved. I do think that I read it at the wrong time, and I'm so happy that I did pick it up again and reread it because it was just so fantastic. This was a great start to a series, and this is a great introduction to books about scheming and political intrigue and that sort of thing. Something where there isn't a lot of plot in terms of action, but there's a lot of behind the scene things, and at the end things just come together in like this really perfect puzzle. And I really love that aspect of this whole series. Actually, it's like a series based thing, and I love that about The Cruel Prince. I am someone who really enjoys seeing these little smart moves play out and seeing how it connects at the end. Series that I've given like high stars to, or books that I've given really high stars to, tend to have that aspect to it, because it's just nothing quite like seeing these little smart scheming moments just come together and perfection. So I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed the reintroduction to this world. In terms of the characters, I still hate Taryn. She is my least favorite character throughout this entire series. Her motivations are just so weak, and I think that has to do more with the fact of who she is and stuff like that, but I just wasn't a fan of her at all. But I like Jude a lot more. I think in the beginning I found her quite whiny, but this time around I didn't find that to be the case. I really enjoyed her character. I loved all of the nastiness and the deviousness that came from the Fae, and I really like this take on the Fae, which seems a little bit more accurate to the original depictions of the Fae. And then obviously you have the Wicked King, which I gave 4 stars to. After the very explosive ending of the first book, I was just dying to pick up this book, and in this one we definitely see how Jude handles what happens and the consequences of her choices that played out in the first book. And I will say that this one is a little bit slower for me, and I had a lot less intrigue because this book was more about coming to terms with what had happened, and Jude finds herself in this new position and she kind of has to play her role. I will say that this book felt a lot less scheming, a lot less about the deviousness, and a little bit more about adjusting. So it wasn't my favorite necessarily, but I still enjoyed it. We are exploring relationships in this book, how each character relates to the other, and that sort of thing. Once again, I still hate Taryn. She's such a hoe, okay? She's such a hoe. Was not a fan of that at all in any way. I felt like her character was just there to annoy me, and I hated that. I will say once again that Holly Black just has a way with endings, because the way this book ended made me pick up The Queen of Nothing so quickly, and I'm really happy that I did because I rated this 5 stars. I absolutely love this. This is definitely the shortest one in the series. The series kind of goes from being the Cruel Prince being the longest and The Queen of Nothing being the shortest in this first generation, first era of the Alfheim series. And I really loved this. I loved how we got to see all these consequences. Once again, coming down to the fact that all these smart moves and the consequences of different actions throughout the series comes to play in here, and I absolutely love this. I loved it. I love the relationship that we explored between Jude and Carden in here. I have no words. This one definitely has a lot more action to it. We have a lot of tension that has been building throughout the series kind of reach its brewing point in this book, and it was just so phenomenal. absolutely loved it. If you need a reason to pick up the series, do it for the last book, because it's so conclusive and so fantastic. I really enjoyed that aspect. I felt like I was satisfied with this ending. I didn't have any strings that I was like, oh, I wish, which is why I was so surprised that we were getting the Stolen Heir by Holly Black. This felt like a little unnecessary because I did find the series to be conclusive. I didn't want any spin-offs. Not to say that I'm mad about reading this. I've now obviously read it. I've given it 3 stars. The reason being is because I really like Jude's character, and I understand that you can't compare these 2 characters. They are completely different, but somewhat the same in the same like token. I really like that Jude had this ambition to be more powerful. I really love that aspect of her. I love the fact that she was ambitious and she was daring, and I feel like Siren just wasn't that. She was so much the opposite of that. She was so unsure of herself, and she kind of felt like someone who was just along for the ride. You know, she didn't have any conclusive decisions, and even when she did, they felt so undermined by her lack of drive. And I don't know, I didn't love that. I really wish that we did get Oak's perspective in this, because I feel like it would have brought so much more dimension to the story if it was dual perspective. I felt like so many scenes would have done so well if we could read them from Oak's perspective, and I really would have loved that. I do understand the series is a single perspective point of view situation, but I really do wish we got more. I would say that if you're reading the Stolen Heir in hopes to get the same kind of vibes as the Cruel Prince, I would say just manage your expectations a little bit, because whilst we still get the whole scheming of the Fae, the deviousness of them, the intricate world and politics and all of that, we still get that, but a lot different than we did in the initial one. I felt like Jude was such an active participant in all of those aspects, and you know, either receiving the bad side of it or getting, you know, the short end of the stick. She was still like involved, and I really liked that aspect. I felt like Siren was constantly waiting for characters to tell her what to think throughout this book, what to believe, and you know, the minute a character would say, ooh, don't do this, she'd be like, maybe I shouldn't do that. I mean, in the end, she still does that sort of thing, but it's still kind of frustrating that she allows herself to be so influenced. I did like the fact that we explored a little bit more of her backstory in this one. I felt like we heard a little bit of it in the first book to get intrigued enough to want to know more about the character, but I'm so happy that we did get this, and this is to explore who Oak is, who Siren is, especially since Oak, the way the first series ended, you're kind of like, what is going to happen to him? I felt like this was a very lackluster, slow burn YA fantasy. I felt like this book was definitely longer than it needed to be, especially since we only got one perspective. It really could have been shorter. Really. In saying that, I felt like some scenes were so dragged out and others just did not get enough love. I felt like the ending could have really done with a lot more thought to it, in the sense that I wished it was dragged out a little bit more, you know, so we could have seen all the ins and the outs and all that, because I felt like it just rushed upon us and I was like, what? I also felt like the storyline was a bit predictable in this one. I love the fact that the Cruel Prince was so unpredictable and predictable in so many ways. In this whole book, it just felt so predictable, and I was like, okay. And once again, the pacing of this book just felt really off. We took so much time in the setup that the ending just didn't feel believable for me. However, that being said, I will probably pick up the second book, just because that ending once again is really something that just surprises you and pulls you in and makes you want to pick up the next one. So that is my opinion on the entire Alfheim world so far, and I will say that I did enjoy the original trilogy so far. Once again, my opinion can be changed based on the second book, because as far as I know, this is going to be a duology, and the second book is called The Prisoner's Throne. Holly Black announced it quite recently, which was quite surprising, because that probably means she has the book written and it will be published very soon. By very soon, I mean probably within the next year. In terms of favorites, it will go The Queen of Nothing, The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and then The Stolen Heir. So The Stolen Heir is definitely not my favorite, and I could probably have done without having read it. If you are interested in picking up the series, you do not need to read the Cruel Prince series to pick up the Stolen Heir. You don't have to fret. There's so much rehashing that happens in all four of these books actually, about the events that happen throughout the series and that sort of thing. So if you're ever worried about having to pick up the books after not having read them for a while, don't worry, you'll be fine. If you really want to, I think you can get away with reading a online summary for this and then picking up the Stolen Heir. So yeah, that's my thoughts so far. Thank you so very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, let me know, and I will see you in the next one. I'm so excited for this new form of vlogging, so I will see you then.